Hi guys and welcome back. It's me again, Alan Barrett, with the Grenade podcast, Pull the Pin. And this week we are pulling the pin on entrepreneurship. I can say it, I can't spell it. Or entrepreneurialism, probably even harder to spell. But we've got a clever combination of business, brand and banter, wall-to-wall wisdom, as we like to put it, with generally utter shite mixed in. Now this week we have a special treat because we've got social media guru, founder and CEO of Social Chain. He's got a tremendous hat collection. He's not wearing one today, but he has got a great hat collection. He's got an enormous following on LinkedIn, and rightly so. He talks nearly as much sense as I do. It's only Steve Bartlett.
I was just wondering then if I'm the utter shite.
No, I'm not. That's a bad start. I'm not calling Steve an utter shite. No, I'm not. No, we've had some great guys on, and definitely yourself included. So thanks so much for coming, Steve. Because
Thank you for having me.
This has been really hard to set up. Probably the hardest one to set up because we know you're busy. But okay, so pulling the pin, entrepreneurialism. So gets talked about a lot. And Steve, you're one of the UK's best known and best loved entrepreneurs, obviously after me.
Big compliment.
But yeah, it is a bit of a compliment. But just tell us more about yourself, Social Chain. You know, what is Social Chain, and just tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so a bit about myself. Born in Africa, came here when I was maybe 3 or 4 years old to Devon in the southwest of the UK. Grew up in a very, very poor family. My mum is like Whoopi Goldberg. She can't read or write. She can't spell. She can't use a phone. When I was 7 years old, I was trying to teach her how to read. She still can't read or write. My dad's pretty smart. He's a 65-year-old white man, so he's almost the antithesis of my mum.
Okay.
They're completely different. Well-educated, bit of a genius.
How did they meet?
They met in Africa. He was over there working as like a structural engineer. He met her. She was 17. He was 27. Bit of a, sometimes I'm like, Dad, you went for a 17-year-old. But anyway.
We call that cashback.
Well, yeah.
Steve, that is, as Alan Partridge would just say, Jurassic Park.
Just about legal. So they met when they were in Africa. They came here. My mum is a crazy, crazy entrepreneur, but not a successful one.
Okay.
So for all of my childhood, she was starting businesses and always failing. And that meant that although my dad's job was okay, we were incredibly poor. Like we didn't have Christmases or birthdays or anything nice. Our house was in it. And this is the thing that I think really kind of messed with me as a kid was our house was in a middle class area. It was in like a nice area, but the windows on the front of the house were smashed. And they were smashed for 15 years. And the grass was about 5 foot high. We're in a perfect street with all these wonderful white people. And I'm this kid with this afro who feels inadequate because there's probably about 7 fridges in our back garden. And half of our house is knocked down because my mum had this idea of building a pool and but she had no money. So she just knocked the house down and then
I like your mum.
Yeah, crazy.
We should get your mum on the podcast.
Fucking crazy. Oh, God. So it was this real sense of inadequacy growing up where we're in this like really nice area, but we're completely broke and living in a completely smashed up house, which outside was terrible. Inside was even worse. The doors they always had holes in them. It was like being a hoarder. And so I was battling as a kid between going to school and telling a bunch of lies about what our life was really like, because I was still trying to fit in. I was still the kid with the afro in a school of 1,500 white kids. So I was really contending with that. Why am I black? Why have I got different hair to everyone else? And then also contending with the fact that like we didn't have Christmases, the car that, just this real sense of like inadequacy, I think, growing up. And I think that's fundamentally the thing that made me pretty obsessed with the idea that, money and stuff would really, really, really matter. Because to me, it was the problem. It was the reason why my mum and dad hated each other as well. It was the reason why they always screamed at each other. Money was the thing that I just needed to get, and it would solve all of my problems. And then you couple that with the fact that my parents were never there, never in the house. I'd wake up, they weren't there. I'd go to sleep, they weren't there, because my mum was out running her businesses and sleeping on the floor. So that creates this effect in this young kid that if I'm going to have anything, money, it's going to be me that gets it. Like I have to do it myself. So if I wanted to eat lunch at school, I'd have to find a way to get the money. And that created this environment, which I think made me an entrepreneur.
You know what's bizarre about that is bear in mind you've had a very, very different upbringing from me in different countries and whatever, but I can absolutely relate to that because Yeah, my mum didn't work. She had osteoporosis, so she sort of tried to work, but she was struggled through ill health. And then my dad worked really hard as a heavy goods vehicle mechanic, worked long hours for just a heavy, dirty job for no money. And they always argued about money. And I thought exactly the same. I thought, yeah, if you can get money, having money means that, you know, you can be happy and whatever.
Yeah.
And I used to walk to school in the winter just with I didn't have a coat, but I used to walk to school. I qualified for free school dinners, and I was the only kid in the school that qualified for free school dinners.
Right.
So I didn't want to be the only person sat there on my own with that green ticket. So I came home every lunchtime. It was like 1.25 miles to walk home. So I'd walk to school in the morning, walk home at lunch, be 10 minutes in the house, walk back to school and walk back again, just so I didn't. And I hated school, so I can absolutely relate to that. But I tell you what, though, as well, what a powerful driver that is as a kid, because that absolutely sows the seed for. Because again, your parents are working hard. They're not sitting, they're not sitting around. So you're seeing probably the hard work, but you're not really seeing the reward.
100%. And my mum was like, when people say to me, like, what did your parents teach you? She taught me a bunch of lessons, and the majority of them were actually like things not to do. So one of the things that she was really bad at was she had no focus. So anyone would walk in off the street, she'd be running her little corner shop, and they would say, the hairdressers down the street is making loads of money. She'd look at her business and think, I'm not a millionaire yet. So she'd turn her place into a hairdresser's. And then someone would walk in 6 months later. And so she's probably started 24 different businesses in the last 24 years, genuinely.
Okay.
And she's now 24 years into business. And I promise you, the business that she runs now is basically selling Mars bars off a shelf. That's 24 years into business because of lack of focus. Yeah. So whenever there's temptation within my life now to change direction because it seems like the grass is greener over there, I just cannot, because she taught me that lesson accidentally. Yeah. And the other thing she taught me, which was a good lesson, is hard work, because my mum would sleep on the floor of her own shop. That's why she wasn't there. So I would go into the back room and I'd see these bags of rice with these little mouse and like rat holes in them where the mice and rats had clearly been eating. And I'm scared of mice and rats. And my mum was sleeping on a blanket next to these bitten bags of rice. So I'm thinking, my mum is sleeping on a floor next to rats and mice, and she's doing it every day, and she's making no money, and she's getting nowhere. And I couldn't understand it, but hard work became the default because she would expect that from me. Yeah. My first job was, in fact, she decided she was going to open a restaurant, one of her business ideas, and she gave me a knife, and she said, this whole room has this paint on it, and we don't like the color of the paint, so use this knife and scrape all the paint off. So I'm 7 years, I'm going around scraping the fucking walls. Do you know how long it takes to use a knife to
I'm not long it takes to scrape. I can imagine a knife doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, I'm there just scrape all summer, just like, and then at the end of it, you get £1. And that's like what I got. I would get £1 and I'd be like, oh my God.
That was a lot of money in 1972.
92, yeah, 1992, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. Yeah. But it's weird, as well, because of all the traits that you need as an entrepreneur, and you'll get asked this question all the time, because I do. People will say, what's the most important one? You think, well, actually, there's about 20 and you need all of them, but hard work's always up there. No one, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, has anyone ever built a big business without working hard?
No.
Has it ever happened?
No, I can't think of anybody.
I'm still searching for someone that made a lot of money without doing anything. I don't think it's really possible.
If they have a big business and they didn't work hard, then they didn't build it.
Yeah, someone somewhere has done it. Or as they say, the first one starts it, the second generation grows it, the third one blows it. Yeah. So basically, but so did you then ever? So your mum's obviously this entrepreneur. You're learning through her mistakes, which again is the best way to learn as well. Did you actually want to be an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember I did. It was one of my top 3 things at school, and I don't know if I really knew what it was. It was Royal Marine, policeman, entrepreneur. Well, in fact, I think it was millionaire, but I thought they were the same thing.
I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. So hindsight's a wonderful thing, because my favorite game to play with my brothers was this game where we all turned our bunk beds into businesses. And again, I had no idea what an entrepreneur was. So I would always so what I'd do is get these pieces of paper, like a big stack of white A4 paper. I write 1 on the first page 6 times, 2 on this page, 3, and then I would cut it up, and this would be the money. So I'd go and give it to my brothers, and then I'd put a sign up on my bed saying all the services that I offer if you come and spend this money here. Okay. And I was the youngest of the 3 brothers.
And what services were there? What were you offering?
Massage. I'd use the moisturizer in the bathroom. I'd do a foot rub and all these kinds of things. It was like a bit of a salon more than anything.
We'll all get one later.
Yeah.
Are they still £1?
But no, they're not. They're slightly more expensive these days. But what I didn't realize until I got older was my brothers weren't playing the game. They were just using me. So,
So you were just giving away free massages,
I got all the money,
basically.
and then the game ended. Every time. So they'd come to my business, they'd spend all this fake money I just cut up, and then the game would end because I'd have all the money. And they were just continually doing that. And I would hate, the worst thing for me was when that game ended because I enjoyed it so much. And then by 15, I'm selling fags on the playground that my mum got from Africa and put in the back room. And she had like a massive room of just these like fake cigarettes. I just would sell them all day.
Did you get in trouble for that ever?
Never.
Oh,
never.
Really? I used to sell cakes at school. I got in trouble for that.
When my mum finally realised one day that the like 20 bin bags had become 15. And then the 15 became 5 bin bags. Yeah. And then there was no bin bags left.
But, do you know what's amazing about this as well? You only ever get this with a true, because I think lots of people now would say that they're an entrepreneur, but they don't have the hustle. You've just got hustle, which is, and it's a really, doing that at kind of 15 or whatever, and you're out there just kind of hustling and learning. And again, it kind of sounds, it sounds a bit obvious, doesn't it? When people say I was doing this when I was young, but it's just one of those things. To be an entrepreneur, it's just in you as a kid, and again, you're getting it from from your parents and whatever. 100%.
And I just felt, and if you think about that situation, I just felt like I had no choice but to do those things because no one's going to give me money. I have this tremendous pressure that I've probably imposed upon myself to have money because every time I go to school, I feel inadequate because everyone else has got these Rockport shoes and these Stone Island coats and these nice pencil cases, and I haven't. That's a big pressure.
Were you quite academic at school? Were you fairly?
No, oh God,
That surprised me because you seem super bright.
I got expelled for not going to school, mainly because I was so caught up with businesses. So by the age of 16, I was running all of the school trips for the school. I'd done all the coffee machine deals. We had all these vending machines. They were going to buy them. I made the point that we could get them for free and make revenue from them. So I went and organized that for the school, right? And I've been back to speak twice. We still have the same deal.
Okay.
And I was caught up with, the school had basically given me, by the age of about 16, a whole wall, which was my wall to advertise my businesses on. And it was basically all the school trips, which I was running, and any other things. I was running all the school parties. So every Halloween, there'd be a party. I'd come up with a party for any reason, just to make money.
And did this make you popular at school with the
really
teachers?
Really popular with the kids. I was really popular with the kids. Not so popular with the teachers.
Okay.
I've been back to my school to speak twice now, and they one of my teachers, Mrs. Birchnell, came up to me and she said like the perfect thing to describe me. She's like, "You're a really, really nice guy, but you're an awful fucking student."
Yeah.
And it's perfectly summarized because my attendance was 30%.
Yeah.
I got expelled, but I didn't get expelled for like throwing chairs or cussing because I would never do that. It was for like not coming to school and not doing any homework ever. I did that show, didn't I? Secret Teacher on Channel 4.
Yes, yeah.
So I went undercover as a teacher in a school.
Was that a shock to the system going back in?
I hated it. I told them on the first day, I absolutely hate this.
Is it because it's like institutionalised? Because I hate anything that's institutionalised.
God, it's so bad. It's like being in prison for me.
Yeah.
And I told them on the first day, I shouldn't have said this, and I'm glad they didn't put it in the show, but I said, if this school burns down and I don't have to come back tomorrow, I'll be happy. Yeah. I should have said without the students in it. Maybe that.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I got home that day, I was like, fuck, are they going to put that on TV? Like me saying I want the school to burn down.
Have you got no filter?
No,
I've got no filter either.
It's gone. My life has got better the less I filtered myself in every way. So if you'd taken it back 5 years, I'd be thinking too much about what I'm saying right now, and I'd be there. And it creates a couple of things. The first is it creates really boring content.
Yeah.
And the second thing is it doesn't really make you happy because self-expression and just speaking your mind really without concern is like cathartic. It's like therapy. So I made the decision. Very early on, no, not really early on, about 3 years ago, that everything I produce, I'll just fucking say what I want to say. And I did it a couple of times and the reaction was positive.
Yeah.
Going back to your point about school, I learned on that experience a very important thing, which I never realized when I was at school, which is the headmaster is essentially the CEO of the business. He's controlling the money and the budget. And I said to him on the first day in school, I said, so what is determining how much money you get as the CEO? Because I didn't know headmasters did the budgets. I thought they were just like the teacher that tells kids off. He said, well, the more people I get in here, the more students I get in here, the more money I get about 4,000 a head.
Yeah.
I said, what's determining how many students you get in here? And he said, oh, the league table. I said, what determines the league table? He went, oh, the grades.
Yeah.
I go, okay, fine. So this is a fucking business, and and these kids are your customers, right?
Yeah.
And the incentive isn't the kid. It's not like who cares about the kid. No, the agenda is not the kid in school. It's the grade. irrespective of what
Yeah.
the kid cares about.
Yeah.
So the whole system is designed like, and that's when the penny dropped, and I was like, okay, it's the system, not these teachers that I should be angry at. The system is would look at Steve Bartlett and think he's never coming. He's not paying attention in this biology lesson. He's going to fail. Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
We'll
But
move
let's
on
get
to
him.
someone
Let's
else.
get him C's, and then that's okay.
In
And we get more money.
like,
Anything at all.
Even
Yeah.
though you can see he's running all of these businesses at 15 years old, wouldn't it make more sense to nurture that as a skill?
Well, I mean, I'm going back a few, because it was a while since I was at school, so I'm going back a while. But I remember we were actually chatting about this the other week. When you do anything like maths, which is a very, very important life skill, it's presented to you in such a way that you just can't relate to it in terms of, just
Pythagoras'
algorithms,
theorem.
Pythagoras, and just, pi, and really making no sense. But why aren't we learning about mortgages, loans, interest
Credit.
rates? Yeah, credit. Why aren't people learning that? Because it amazes me how many people just don't know how interest rates work. And that's a really important life skill that people are going to need. But I suppose, there's, why change it? We've done this for years.
Isn't that life though,
Yeah.
generally? And especially with these institutions where innovation is harder to disrupt it, because like because of the institution of like university and school, there's a lot of barriers to an entrepreneur to come in and fix that by creating a new type of school. You're actually seeing it a lot in the US now. There's these new schools popping up from Silicon Valley specifically. I've got a friend that started one, and they're just completely reimagining it.
I was reading about this.
It's hard though, because you've got to sell to the parent.
Yes.
And the parent is thinking in a certain way and is, like my mum, the reason why she didn't speak to me when I told her I was going to drop out of university for 2 years was because me getting a degree also says to her and her friends that she's a good mother.
Yes.
That's the measure of like a good parent.
Well, as well, it's relatable. So I think because an entrepreneur is not a job. So, but isn't it easier for a parent, when other parents say, what's your child do, how's Steve or how's Al? And they go, oh yeah, they're a doctor or a dentist or they're an estate agent or, whatever they are. But if they just go, well, he's an entrepreneur, it just sounds like you're an unemployed layabout, really.
Yeah.
Which, sometimes probably they are. But I think it's the fact they can't really relate to it. My dad was probably an entrepreneur without really knowing he was one, because he was completely unemployable. After the Second World War, when he grew up, he was, all the jobs were kind of in construction and sort of rebuilding the country after, 6 years of war. And there was a lot of building to do, so everyone was doing it. So because everyone was doing it, there was no money in it. And, he didn't enjoy it. And he actually then, people were just starting to get cars. And, he taught himself to be a mechanic. So he sort of realised what he was doing probably wasn't much future in it as such, or at that time. So he went and did something else. Again, worked hard, never made any money at it, but I watched him do that and learned a lot. Yeah. But he would never have said he was an entrepreneur, but it was just him, his brother and his dad, family business. They never worked for anyone else. They worked hard to the point, like my granddad went blind at 82 and still went to work.
Crazy.
My uncle had a stroke at 74 and carried on going to work. My uncle, he never left home. He never had a girlfriend. He never got married, so he just went to work for 74 years and died living with his 99-year-old mother. And it was just like, I'm not doing that, at all. So it's amazing the impact that these childhood experiences just have on you. How you get sort of molded directly or indirectly. So then, how's social media come about then? So you're at school, you're sort of selling cigarettes.
Yeah.
So you're 15 years old, you're doing all the school trips. 16 years old, so you don't want to go to uni.
So I didn't know an alternative to university. No one told me anything. No one told me that there was
a gap
an
year.
alternative.
No, you got to do a gap year and go travelling and find yourself.
Yeah, that's probably like a little bit of a more of a pot. Like you've got to have the money to go on a gap year.
Yeah.
Like right. So for me, I've got 3 older siblings, and they all went on this path. So you just presume that that's the path you have to go down, which is apply to university, go and do it. By this point, I think there's something really interesting that happened at about 16 or roughly about 16 years old, where I realized that I knew I didn't want to be broke and poor, but I also knew that my grades were going to come out so bad compared to my brothers who were going to get straight A's. My brother was in the newspaper because he rewrote the textbooks. He's that smart.
Oh wow! Okay.
He got all A's and then A stars and then 100% in 3 of his exams. I knew I was never going to be him. I also know I was never going to be all the other kids that were getting 100%. And so I gave up at about 16 and fell back on this idea that I couldn't prove or justify, that I wasn't going to need grades. And the minute I decided that I wasn't going to need grades and I was still going to be successful was the minute when I really like gave up on school. And I got expelled about 6 months later, and I literally didn't even go to most of my exams for A-level. Honestly, the grade slip, the piece of paper that says the grades I got that sits in my dad's drawer at home is, I made it on the computer because it was so bad. I looked at it, I thought, fuck this, I'm not telling him that because I know everyone else got amazing grades. So I went home, I like copied it and I just changed the grades and I was like, here's the grades I got. He was like, cool. I like didn't even go to most of the exams. So I ended up getting into this really shit university, like a really bad polytechnic university. Got there 1 week in, I look over, to study business, I look over in the room and everybody's like sleeping on the desks. And it just dawned on me that this place I was expecting this to be, we're all learning about business, it's practical, I'm learning all the secrets, was not that. And everyone was just here
for you
because they just didn't know what else to do with their lives. And this girl next to me is sleeping on the desk. So I left that room and I dropped out. In my first week of university, I went to one lecture, dropped out, had this idea that slight inspiration I'd had when I arrived at university, seeing these messy built notice boards. And I thought maybe I can bring messy notice boards to the internet because it's crazy that we have 100,000 students in this vicinity in Manchester where I'd moved for university, and we don't have any way of talking together. So I thought I'll make a website that brings notice boards online, and I was going to call it Wall Park. So that's what I did. Call my mum, dropping out of university. She goes, no, you're fucking not. In her own African terminology, she goes, no, you're not. I go, yeah, I am. I'm doing it. She goes, don't speak to me or any of the family until you go back to university. And she like called my brothers and sisters, told them like not to speak to me or whatever.
And how long did that go on for? Did that actually happen?
2.5 years.
It was 2.5 years. They didn't speak. I thought it was like a figure of speech. They actually didn't speak to you for 2.5 years.
There was one occasion where I completely ran out of money and I ended up getting a megabus from Manchester back to Devon, and I walk in the house and my mum's in a really good mood and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And it turns out my dad, because he wants an easy life, had told her that I'd gone back to university. Blows up, she screams at me some things which she's always going to regret saying to me about wishing she had an abortion. I storm back out the house, I go back up to Manchester. That was the first time I spoke to her in that about 3 years from dropping out to starting the first business. And yeah, I didn't speak to her. She wouldn't speak to me. I was completely broke. So I'd gone to Manchester with 50 quid, but I had these like 3 overdrafts. I'd rinsed the overdrafts and I didn't know what a credit rating was. So I destroyed my credit rating. When I put my debit card in the machine, it didn't come back out because that's what they do when they don't want to close the account and make it a surprise for you.
And how old are you at this stage?
18, 19. Okay. And then there I am in Manchester, completely broke, no money, minus £7,000, dropped out of university so you don't get a student loan. So I have this rent to pay for 12 months in this halls of residence, can't pay it. I move out into Moss Side, which is where all the gun crime takes place. My house is boarded up there. I'm alone there. Can't pay my rent there either. Can't feed myself. So I'm just like shoplifting Chicago town pizzas from the corner shop. I'm like calling Just Eat and I'm making an order knowing that when the guy gets there, I have no money, but I'm going to persuade him to give me the food.
Okay.
And I do that all the time.
There's the hustle.
He'd get to the door.
Did it ever work?
Every time. Because what are they going to do?
I really hope you pay them back now.
Oh, my girlfriend. I think my girlfriend must have ordered in context, when the pain in your stomach is so great that you're literally lying on the floor because you've not eaten for so long, you do things you wouldn't think you'd do.
Yeah.
So the guy gets to the door from Just Eat. I'm like, oh, my girlfriend must have ordered this. She's gone out. Oh, got no money. I'm like, pretending I'm looking for money. I haven't got any, and then eventually they'd just give me the food.
But you know as well, you'll know this, and again, it sounds obvious, but I realised this years ago when I dropped out of A-levels. I went and got on the number 11 bus, went straight to the local gym where I've been training for a year on work experience for free because I couldn't afford to pay gym membership. And I said, I want a job. And I started working at this gym. And I realised back then, personality goes a long way. Yeah. If you could have grades on a piece of paper or personality. Now, depending what you want to do, it's nice having a good personality if you're a doctor, but you do need the grades as well. But if you've got the personality and just some chat as well, it's like
sales, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was really good at. So that in that moment when I moved to Moss Side the first time, I went and got a telesales job because I knew that there's probably no one in the city that can sell something on the phone better than I can.
Yeah.
I call up Doreen at 9 a.m. She leaves with some double glazing that she didn't know she wanted. And I was really, really good at that. And I would work. What would happen is I'd spend 2 months at every...
She didn't even have a house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
She lived in a tent.
So that's what I did for the next... While I started the business, I did that for the next year or so to just get money. And I'd only last two months because I'm fundamentally unemployable.
Yeah.
What would happen was I would do 2 months in these call centers. I'd rise to the top of the call center within there was one time it took me 2 months to get to the top, usually in the first month, selling car insurance, windows, doors, artificial grass, studio vouchers all over Manchester, Facebook ads before anybody was using Facebook in 2012. I'd make tons of money, and then I'd either quit or get fired. I'd usually get fired because I would just stop coming. One time I got fired because they caught me pretending to speak on the phone, and they called me into the office and played it, and you can hear I'm just pretending to have a conversation with myself. Okay, so what hotel would you like? And there's no one on the phone. But what I'm doing is I'm designing my website on my mobile phone in my hand. So I'm like fundamentally unemployable, and I did that until the website was live.
And you just get bored. Is it boredom, or is it?
As to why I was messing around on the phones, or
just in terms of say about being unemployable, and you again, you obviously, if you set your heart on doing something, you can get there pretty quickly. But then when you get there, and I know we spoke about this on your podcast last year, but when you get there, you think, I actually don't want to be here anymore because I want to be somewhere else. And wherever there is, if you're an entrepreneur, is always a different place.
So in the case of the call centers, I was the most dedicated when I was there and the best at it. So they allowed voluntary overtime. So you could work as long as you wanted to. I would get there at 9 o'clock and I'd leave at 11 p.m. and I'd make more money than 150 others that had been doing it for years, selling car insurance at Swinton's Car Insurance. Like anybody that listens, like a lot of people that still know me from there, and they'll know that I was the best in month one by a long way. I was the hardest working as well. But that wasn't the life that was meant for me. So this was a stepping stone. To your point about boredom, like it's something that I've really, really thought a lot about, and something that I've really had to spend a lot of energy on, because I set myself goals when I was 18 years old that everybody's seen because I've still got my diary and it's all written there. And by 25, I'd achieved those goals. And there was an expectation that it would feel different when I got there. Mm-hmm. And that was because, the goals I wrote in my diary at 18 years old, which everybody has seen, is I want a Range Rover to be my first car. Mm-hmm. And I'd never driven before. I'd never had a car. I was completely broke when I wrote that. I'm going to be a millionaire before I'm 25.
Maybe don't have that and keep it in Moss Side.
No, I know, yeah. Bloody hell, yeah. That wouldn't last long, Moss Side.
Some bastard nicked the wheel off mine at the weekend, so...
Oh, my car gets smashed to pieces all the time. The other two was, so a Range Rover, I was going to be a millionaire. I want to have a girlfriend. Never had a girlfriend before because my mum and dad were so toxic together.
Has that changed yet?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And the last one was I wanted to work on my body image because I was super, super skinny. So those were my 4 goals before 25. And upon achieving them, there was just this tremendous sense of anticlimax. In fact, it was one of the most confusing days of my life when someone came across when I was like 24 years old and asked if they could buy the business, and a big, how many digits? I don't know, 8-digit number, big 8-digit number. They offered to buy the business, and I went home, and 18-year-old inadequate Steve shows up and in that moment, and he goes on Rightmove and Auto Trader, and he loads it up and looks at these big houses and big cars and thinks, okay, showtime, let's do this. Let's live the dream. You always said you want to live. And I just felt this sense of like, if I got these things, I think I'll be poorer, but not in a financial sense, because then what? And I'd been really close to some friends of mine that are on this, like they call it the hedonistic treadmill, which is they get the Lamborghini, then they're like, what next? And I looked at all of this Lamborghini that I really wanted and thought, what do I get after? What do I get after that? And that was a really confusing day for me. I ended up getting a big house in the countryside on a hill, a 7-bedroom house with a tennis court at the bottom of the garden and a 100-meter distance between the front door and the electric gates on the front. And I moved in there with Dom, big fucking 2 living rooms, cinemas downstairs, you name it. And day one was great. Like day one, we're like, we've made it. We're like running around, like fucking, let's invite some girls over, and then I'm just like, why am I here? I've just put myself 45 minutes away from all my friends in the middle of nowhere. I don't feel any different in any way. I lasted about 7 months there. And then I begged to leave, and I went to 1 bed in back 10 minutes from the office. And I've been on that journey. I've been on that journey a lot of really trying to understand what my goals are and really why I have those goals. That's the killer question is, as I reflect, the reason why I wanted to be a millionaire before I was 25 and have a Range Rover Sport and get a girlfriend was because I was caught up on this idea that if I become this like happy, sexy millionaire, I'll be exponentially more happy. The thing was, which I didn't realize, right, and society had tricked me into believing was I was already happy the whole fucking time. I was happy in Moss Side. I was as happy in Moss Side stealing those Chicago Times. I mean this as well. It sounds like people don't believe me when I say it, but I don't really care.
No, I believe you.
I was as happy then as I am now. I was genuinely, and I've always been happy, but something, probably Instagram and magazines and bullshit you see online, told me that I couldn't possibly be because I didn't have a Lamborghini yet. And the thought that I couldn't possibly be and that I was missing something was the thing actually that was causing me problems. So I had to go and get that house in the middle of nowhere with the big gate and the cinema downstairs to realise that I didn't need it.
And do you think that society tricks us or we trick ourselves? Because, again, I completely get the point about happiness. And I've said this a lot, and having nice things is always the icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had nice things and not had nice things, and I definitely know what I prefer. But to your point as well, I can't remember a time in my life where I've ever been unhappy. Maybe there's a difference between being happy but not necessarily content.
Yes, yeah.
So I think it's fine to be happy but just want to go and do something else. Otherwise, you just, you know, if you hit your goals at 25, well, you can't pause your life for the next 65, 70 years thinking, well, that's it, now I'm done. I did everything I wanted to do. So you always have to pat yourself on the back for what you've done and then do the next thing.
100%. And I've thought, like, to say that I've thought hard about this is a massive understatement. I've written at length. I've gone to jungles in Indonesia and written about this topic at tremendous length. So I'm like, I was trying to do the exact same thing when I was writing about this, was how do I contend this idea of feeling like you are already enough and you don't need anything more with this sense of ambition, which I have as well. And in fact, I almost concluded that it's the feeling that I'm enough that creates this platform to do everything I'm doing for the right reasons. If that makes sense. Yeah. When I didn't feel like I was enough, I was chasing stuff for the wrong reasons. And then when I got it, it wasn't fulfilling because it was all extrinsically motivated. I was doing it to impress girl A, B, this person, whatever. Now, when I know that I'm enough, I chase things, but for intrinsic reasons that will make me happy. And I'm not against Lamborghinis. Like, I'm probably going to buy one, but when I buy one, I'm going to buy it for the right reasons, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And I now feel like, someone said to me one day, they said, what if you're already enough? And it just like haunted me because it felt like it shattered my purpose. This idea that you are already enough, you already have everything you need, you are already everything you need to be.
And who is? No one can, because we always want to improve on ourselves.
I think you can want to improve whilst also believing that you are already enough.
Yes. Okay.
I'm already enough. Like I have every. And to be fair, in Moss Side, although I was struggling to eat, and you like Maslowian needs, I do need food and shelter, whatever. But I was already enough.
Do you think though? Is there any way? Because I believe you, but do you think you or we are misremembering? Because I said before, so I hated school, but I was never unhappy. I just hated school. So. And when I left junior school and the headmaster wrote in my book the day I left, he just put, keep smiling. And, he wasn't being sarcastic. I was always bouncing around school perfectly happy. I'd rather have been somewhere else, but I just wasn't unhappy. But do you think we're misremembering? And actually, if you did go back to that time in Moss Side, knowing what you know now, do you think...
Do you know what it was? It was my mind's in Moss Side. I didn't think I was going to be here long. So I started a diary, which I've still got today, and I could pull it up on my phone. I'll show you after, where I say, I'm going to start recording this diary because I'm going to tell loads of people about it one day. And I lied in my diary on day one. And it gives me goosebumps when I say this. I said in my diary that a TV show had approached me to write about this. I just didn't know how to write it in my diary that I was going to record this because I thought I was going to be rich one day. And you see it every day in my diary. And so that gives you an idea of my perspective. I wasn't in Moss Side. I was starting my movie of how I got out of Moss Side. So everything was fascinating to me. It was like, look how, there's this video of me opening my fridge going, I've got no food, and me recording it. And me being like, look at these bailiff. So in the presentations I do, I talk all around the world. I show you all the photos I took, and it's like, look what I'm eating today, and it's fucking flour mixed with water. I show you my desk.
That's what you got for lunch, actually. We thought you'd like to reminisce.
Brilliant. It's like all these bailiff letters and all the CCJs I got when I was 18 and 19, and I'm documenting it because my mindset told me that this was. If I thought that was my destination, I would have been fucking miserable.
Yeah.
To me, it was just this really exciting journey I was on to becoming this massive, successful millionaire entrepreneur. And it's the mindset difference. That's what made me happy. I think when Social Chain went public, when we became a public company, and I see it, it's worth 190 million that day. Like, I didn't feel anything. And like that. And I start to really think about it. I'm like, why does this day
that's
feel...
a bit sad in a way. You do need to address that. You must feel this overwhelming pride. You must feel that. I'm not saying it makes you happier. I get that.
I had to, this is the thing, I had to like deploy the, so I was expecting, as I was when that person made that big offer or whatever, like confetti and like gratitude to show up.
A marching band.
Yeah. But so what I learned on that day, here's a... Do
you want me to get you a marching band?
It would be really useful.
Yeah,
really useful. Okay. What I learned on that day is, I called Dom, and Dom's the same. Dom's like super anticlimactic. We're just like, it's the expectation again that we would feel something else that's making us not feel so great. So kind of an anticlimax. I walk out the door that day, and I thought, I'll just walk to work today, the day that we went public, walking down the street, and I look up and I see the Beetham Tower in Manchester, this tall skyscraper. And I remember, I used to walk down this street when I was Brighton. I used to walk past that, and I used to say, one day I'm going to live in there. And the apartments are only £600 a month. And then I keep walking and I walk past this Jaguar garage. And every single day when I did my night shift at this call centre, I walk past this Jaguar garage. I used to say to myself, I'd love to buy a Jaguar one day, like fantasize about it. And in that moment, all the gratitude showed up. And really what it was the contrast of being able to really feel the life that I used to live and the life that I have now. And I started crying. And I called Dom, I sent him this voice note, and I'm like, fuck. And it was, sometimes you need the contrast.
You do, and you know what has definitely happened there, and it sounds crazy, and I think I get this a lot, it hasn't sunk in.
Yeah, it hadn't.
It's just not the fact that you're ungrateful or disappointed or unhappy in any way. It just sometimes just doesn't sink in. And sometimes things take years to sink in. And, maybe they never sink in. I don't know.
Because if you imagine it like a staircase of 1,000 stairs, you go up one stair every day.
Yeah.
And you don't celebrate one stair. No. Right? So when you get to the top of the staircase, you're like, I've just done 1,000 stairs, but you've done one stair a day.
Yeah.
So the reason why I walked through those streets and I got really emotional and suddenly I was overcome with gratitude was I got to see stair 0 again for a second. And I got to see and I got to look back down that staircase by looking at this Jaguar garage. And I was like, whoa, this is nuts, you know?
And the problem as well, if it is something as, as simple as stairs, and you could look at your life or the journey or entrepreneurism this way, when you can see you're at the top stair and you can't see the next stair.
Well, that's terrifying. Yeah,
exactly. So actually, because all you can see now is the way back down again. So if that's floating your company or me being on Necker, you're thinking, actually, how do I beat this? It is back to that the supercar analogy, and in a way, I think that's where you get the element of almost. Again, it's not unhappiness or dread, perhaps a bit of realism, thinking, shit, I've got to beat this now. And we're competitive people, very competitive people. But also with you saying about that and the fact you don't feel indifferent, that's humility, Steve. It's an amazing quality, and a lot of people don't have that, and it's one of the qualities. And again, actually, we've had lots of people say, how does Steve say humble and whatever? Because it's easier said than done, because we'll all have our moments. But actually, that's a phenomenal trait. So I don't think you should think of that as a negative.
I don't. It's just really contending with. So when I get those feelings, I just really try and understand it and why I feel that way. And I'm going through all of this. As a young guy, I'm going through this. I was 25, 26 years old.
Well, I'm loving watching you do it. Because again, I'm learning and I'm seeing things you're saying and I'm like, I get that. And there's not that many people who certainly do the type of stuff you've done. I mean, it's a very, very, very elite club. So there's so few people you can look to, and again, you can tell how genuine it is and how real it is. Because again, if you just look on Instagram, it looks like everyone does that. And it's all bollocks. So it's amazing to watch your journey, because I'm excited watching you on it.
There's something you said which really resonated with me just then. You said about when you get to the top of the staircase, it can actually feel really strange and quite depressive, or it can feel quite uncomfortable. And this is another thing that I've really spent a long time thinking about and writing about in the book that I have coming out, is about this. I used to think that, when I was in Moss Side, I used to think that I was in a situation of chaos, and what I was searching for was stability, right? But it's actually the other way round. When I was in Moss Side, I was stable because I had purpose, I had meaning, and I had a pursuit. Yeah. That was my step. The chaos was when I get to the top. And this is the thing that I think people really need to reconsider, is like your stability as an entrepreneur, as anybody in this room, is your purpose, is the drive. It's the striving for something. It's the pursuit. So the pursuit of happiness, all in all, is the happiness, like the pursuit itself. And in fact, chaos is the stability. Chaos is when you have this is why people are killing themselves at like unbelievable rates. This is why for the last 2 years, in like literally recorded history, if you go on Google and type in life expectancy in the UK or the US, for the last 2 years is the first time in recorded history where it's dropped, for the first time ever in the UK and the US. And the reason for that is the opioid epidemic, which is, again, people feeling, a certain way so that they get addicted to heroin, and suicide. It's the two things that have affected the life expectancy. And it's like a lack of inherent meaning in people's lives, according to all of the people that I admire and read about. And, people just like really need that. And it kind of compounds the point that, in fact, chaos is stability. Chaos is when everything is fine. You have nothing to do. You have no purpose, no reason to get up in the morning. And stability is, in fact, what we thought chaos was, which is when you're challenged and you have something to strive for, and when you're chasing something, and when there's a goal, a meaningful goal.
The problem as well, you become so fixated on the goal. Did you ever think about what happens after you achieve the goal? No, because no one ever does. So it's actually really common. We had Liv Cook on the other week, and she was saying after she became, I think, world champion for the first time, and I think she was then 4 times world champion. As she became world champion, she didn't think about what was going to happen the following day, because again, she didn't get the marching band and the confetti.
She goes home to her flat.
Yeah, she went home and was about
yeah, what do I do?
Okay. And for the first time then, you don't have that meaning, and it's like...
And that's chaos.
It is. Yeah, it really is. So I think, and I certainly didn't think what would happen the day after, we did our first big deal, our second big deal. Now you think, okay, will there be a third big deal? And you think, actually, you just have to kind of think, to the end of your life, and things are going to happen, good and bad and whatever. But you just always have to have that goal and purpose, and something you can improve on. That's why as well, and I think you'll be the same, it's great having a brand, because a brand isn't finished. So you can always evolve a brand. And I think the problem is, if you have something where it's very much like finished, like buying a Lamborghini, I don't have one, then you have one, you're building it, it's finished now, I've got that. I think that's actually why I like flying, because I could fly for the next 60 years and I'm always going to be able to get better. So I think that way then, it's not just okay, there is an element of, well, I can't fly and now I can fly. But then there's all sorts of different aircraft and ratings and fixed wing and rotary and whatever. So I like filling my life full of stuff. The problem is, again, then you are always busy chasing rabbits potentially, and you've got to make sure every now and again you do stop and catch one.
Yeah, interesting.
We could talk about this stuff all day long. So sorry. Right then, I'm digressing. So got to ask you just a bit of stuff about social media and social chain. Sure. Just some quick fire ones. Favourite social media platform?
Oh, Twitter.
Okay. Oh, really? That shocks me. I thought you'd go LinkedIn.
100% Twitter, because I just think it's so undervalued. I'm like, if I told you could listen to some of the world's smartest minds
directly from them,
you could just listen to them speak and think out loud, all across the world, and you can watch them argue with each other and arrive at conclusions and learn from them. Like people, I don't think people understand the power of Twitter. It's the single thing that teaches me the most in terms of social media platforms. It's the breaking news for me. It's everything. It's my most used social media app.
That's really interesting, because it's my least.
Really?
Because I find Twitter a bit pointless, and I think I've got to make sure that I'm just following the right people.
That's it.
Because otherwise, you get a lot of stuff kind of drifts past your feed, and it's perhaps
I'm mass mute. I can't follow people because they'll take it personally. So I mass mute, and I've probably muted about 85% of the people that I'm following.
Okay, right. I need to do that. I need to start muting people. I promise I won't mute you.
That's fine.
So in business, best business advice you've ever been given?
I would say the first thing that springs to mind is those who think they can and those who think they can't are both usually right, which is a quote that someone said to me. And it for me, described probably the most important thing that underpins business and the challenges you face, which is just believing that you can. Mm-hmm. And like that as a driving force seems to just smash down walls that apparently could never be smashed down. So you'll get today, someone will say to you, oh no, Alan, we can't make chocolate like that. We can't do it like that.
Oh, I hear it all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And same with Elon Musk. They said to him that, you can't make electric cars that are using batteries that are fast and cheap. It can't be done. Right. And the belief that you can is in fact really the driving force behind learning how to do it, getting it done, persuading other people to do it. So even in my team, when I come across someone who I believe is being a pessimist about our ability to do something, I'm just like, it really annoys me, because I think the belief that you can in my life is really the reason I'm sat here now. Like if you look at it on paper, no grades, no money, like no real inherent advantages that you could probably point out. My brothers and sisters aren't entrepreneurs, but the thing that defined me was at 16 years old. And look, they call me a social media expert. Like no one's born knowing about social media.
Yeah.
So, but the only thing I can point out, say that's the thing that made me different was, I always believed, regardless of what someone would say to me. I believed I was going to be a millionaire. You can see it in my diary. 18 years old, a broke kid writes his first car is going to be a Range Rover Sport. I was going to be a millionaire before I'm 25. I always just believed it, like no one could tell me otherwise.
What's the worst that could have happened? So, because no one was actually really expecting it to happen.
There was nothing else.
So if it didn't, you haven't lost anything.
Nothing else was going to happen, Alan. In my mind, nothing else was going to happen. There was no other life Steve lived. In my head, there was no other life. I heard my business partner talking once in a while, and someone asked him a question, which was like, oh, did you ever doubt, da-da-da? And he's like, oh yeah, like, I didn't think it, da-da. And I'm sat there thinking, no, I never. There was no other life. There was no plan B. And I think sometimes removing choices and removing the plan B just like adds fuel to the fire of plan A. And that for me is my defining quality. So that's my most important business advice. Sorry to...
Okay. No. And again, do you know what? I've got loads and loads of questions about social chain and social media and whatever. And I'm not going to ask you any of them because I'm just loving all of your... I'm just loving your views on life about entrepreneurial stuff because it's just brilliant because we could have 1,000 guests on it. Yeah, never get this. But I mean, so what do you think now? What is it that's driving you and getting you out of bed in the morning?
It's a great question.
With everything you've said... Because again, now you're driving probably almost towards the unknown.
Yeah.
So you'll have little stepping stones along the way, that markers. Whether again it's targets for the business or personal targets or whatever, the acquisition of certain things. But are there any? What is it? What is it that
really good question? And
it's difficult for people like us.
I was gonna say like I might be lying with this answer because it's so hard to know,
Yeah.
We're all like kind of looking at ourselves, trying to figure it out. But I think there's something in me at the moment in particular that really wants to see my true potential and really test myself. Okay. So we're doing this massive show in Manchester called The Diary of a CEO Live, which is my podcast live. And it's not what you'd expect. It's like heavily musical. It's like theatre.
Okay.
So I'm like, can I make a theatre show?
Is my invite in the post?
100%.
Okay.
Front row. You'll have meet and greet backstage.
It might be an anticlimax.
No, but I'm really like with that. I'm like, can I write like a theatrical show? Is that something? Because people typically they put themselves in boxes. They say, oh, I am a writer or I am an entrepreneur.
Is your mom in it? Your mom needs to be in it.
She's not gonna. I'm gonna talk about her a lot. That's for sure. But she's probably not gonna be there. And I'm so inspired by people like Elon Musk, where he's made this payment business, then done like these cars, then spacecrafts, and Kanye West. People don't like him, but started as a producer, became a rapper, started doing clothing. Now he does these shows. Now he's doing gospel, and I'm really liberated by this idea that you don't just need to be one thing. So I want to be more than one thing. I want to start doing theatre shows and writing that. I probably at some point I kind of want to be a DJ at some point after I do the entrepreneurial thing. And I think you can splice all of these things together. And I think that the skills that have made you successful can be translated into a bunch of other things, whether it's philanthropy or creative or whatever it might be. And I want to go and do that. And I really want to surprise myself and a lot of other people by them thinking, wasn't he that social media kid that did that social media stuff. Why is he making movies?
And to a certain extent as well.
I think it'll be fun, good challenge.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. And diversification's key. And again, I was, chatting to, and I'm sorry to mention Richard Branson again, but, where he was saying before, but I did a talk with him a couple of years ago about diversification. And he was saying, if they hadn't diversified, they'd still have record shops.
Yeah.
So actually, no, you wouldn't have record
Yeah,
shops.
you'd be dead.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
But I think when you've had a successful business, whether again, it's Virgin Records or Grenade or Social Chain, okay, maybe lightning doesn't strike twice, but maybe it does. But I think to a certain extent, you get a free move, don't you, somewhere?
Yeah.
So I think the key is don't blow your free move, because if you do,
then
it's probably going to be a bit harder.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, in terms of getting out of bed, because I've had people come over here, and in fact, even our investors come over here, and they've invested in Grenade, and they said this is our last investors, Growth Point Capital, invested in Grenade. They'd never been to my house or anything, and they actually came to my 40th birthday party 3 years ago. And one of my investors, who again, knows me very well, as working hard and driving the business and whatever, and he sort of came to the house and he said, I don't know how you go to work every day.
Why?
Just because I think...
He thought it was beautiful, so he thinks...
Yeah, just to the point, I think, again, he thought, well, you've cracked it. How do you leave all this? How do you then jump in a car, drive for an hour and a half,
Is he an
go to
entrepreneur?
work a day in office? No, he's not. He's a corporate investor. And again, that's the point. They don't quite...
So he's thinking the
Get
reason you're doing this is to get wealthy.
It's to money, yeah.
Yeah, so he's mistaking your purpose. For,
Yeah, so, which is really common.
Yeah.
So, and again, people don't quite get the fact we do some of this stuff just because we love it. We want to do good things. You mentioned philanthropy. I'd like to leave the world a better place than I found it. So I'd like to do, just discrete things along the way that just improve people's lives. I like the fact that we've got, a team now of 70 people. You'll have hundreds of people. I like the fact that...
I wish I had 70.
yeah, you don't want my 70. Actually, they're all epic, you do, really. But it's, again, I feel a sense of responsibility. I don't want to let them down. I don't want to be the kind of guy that, where's Al today? Oh, yeah, couldn't be asked to come in today because he's gone off, helicopter shopping or something. And because... And it's that humility again. I think I don't want to let people down, let myself down. I want to improve like you want to improve. And again, I want to make the team proud, and I want them to, fulfill their best potential. I had one on my team this week. He's talking about starting his own business, and I said I'd be the first person to shake your hand. So, and I think they probably would almost expect, from the wrong employer, you to be just again try and talk them out of it. Yeah. But I'd never talk someone out of. Yeah. Following a dream. It'd be absolutely criminal. So saying this now, so what do you think is the biggest risk you've ever taken? And how do you look back, on that risk?
Biggest risk, I think probably at the time was, I had a big glass, when I launched wallpark.com, which was the notice board website. It took me about 3 years. I was 21 years old. And I had started building these social media pages to drive people to Wallpark. And I had investors. I had 5 investors at the time. One of them was actually the founder of Friends Reunited, which at one point was the biggest social network in the world. So I had a lot of big name investors backing this kid that had never done anything in his life before. And I started to believe that I'd created this website that was for students, but I'd built 4 million students, a following of 4 million students on social media. I started to believe that you don't need the website. You could do what I'm trying to do on social media. Tried to tell my investors that. They told me I was wrong.
That's quite common as well, because again, they're looking at this differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of my real saving graces in life is just I think about things in a very logical manner. I don't buy convention. I kind of buy what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. And that when you can think of that way, reason from these, as Elon says, sorry to keep using his name, when you reason from first principles, which is just what you know to be true right now, you create really innovative new solutions. But none of us can. Because we all follow blueprints for safety reasons, because that's the way it's always been done, whatever. But in that moment, I have 4 million students here on my right hand, and I'm driving 20% of them a month over to my website to then put adverts on my website. Why don't I just put the adverts where the 4 million students are?
Yeah.
So explaining that to no, but because brands went on social media back then. I remember asking Spotify if they wanted to be posted on my Facebook page and them telling me where to stick that idea and begging to be on my website. But I'm like, there's more people here. So big glass of wine in London, sent an email, I resign, I quit. I quit again. This is like the third time I'd quit my life. School, university, and then I quit again out of the blue. Everyone's super surprised. And I was like, I believe more in these social media pages and social media. I'm going to start building these social media pages. So 21 years old, I go around the world meeting every young person I could that's built a big social media page. I persuaded them all to give me their social media pages for free. Nearly all of them still work with me today. And that sounds exploitative. They're all rich.
Yeah, okay.
Like, you know, Dom was the first to give me a social media page. His net worth is several million.
Yeah.
You know, and he was a 21-year-old kid, Edinburgh University. I met him in a Revs bar up there and I said, listen, drop out of university, come to Manchester, give me your student problems Twitter page, which had 5,000 followers. It now has 12 million. And, you know, come and do this with me. And then I went around Hannah, Cattle, Nick Speakman. They all gave their social media pages for free.
Again, there's the chat, the personality, the hustle.
He couldn't believe the opportunity I was presenting. He thought it was like, and in hindsight, I'm like, Dom, you're an idiot. Like if some like random kid shows up in a Revs bar, tells you to drop out of university and come to Manchester, say no. Like,
yeah, but the thing is as well, he must have had that in his, because you probably couldn't talk someone into doing what they really didn't want to do. I mean, he must have already had that seed planted potentially. Or again, you were super compelling.
I gave him an option.
Did you sell him insurance through Swinton's at the same time?
It was basic. He was the last person you'd consider an entrepreneur, and he'd say that. He was the last. Okay. But I gave him an option that felt more compelling than his current one. His current one was carry on doing this degree at Edinburgh University, doing like sports science, whatever it was. The option I presented was, we're going to build this global student social network. I have all of these investors and I want you.
Yeah.
Compelling, right?
I'm in.
It feels compelling. You know, like it feels compelling. He was oh my God, he showed up to this Revs bar with a perfect type, perfect black suit, shiny black shoes. I'm there in like my snapback and I'm like, the fuck is this guy doing? And he came with me to Manchester. And that's what I did at 21 years old. I met all these young kids. All of them gave me their social media pages. I gave all of them a job in exchange for that. And we called it, this chain of social media pages, Social Chain.
Yeah, brilliant.
And that was 5 years ago. So
it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, and someone's asked, said, what's the biggest risk? But actually, you could probably name one almost every week.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it's really tricky.
My biggest risks in hindsight are always when you look back and say you threw yourself into a really uncertain situation with no plan. And at the time it felt okay, but 21 years old, I was on like BBC as this Wall Park kid. I was when you're young, they parade you around. They're like, oh, he's done a business. He's like, yeah. And so that was my identity. It was my family who were finally proud of me. And I finally had some money so that I didn't have to like steal food anymore. One day I went up and spoke on stage in front of a big room of people. 3 people came up to me and invested in my company because I was just this 18-year-old prodigy. Because I could speak. It's a massive advantage.
It is. It is. And it's funny, actually, because the reason I asked that question is when we did our first big deal and we were taking, a lot of significant legal advice. And we met armies of law firms. And the law firm we picked we're still with today. And and one of the ones that we rejected, I'll say actually why, I won't say who it is, but why we rejected them. And we went in and, so my wife and I, we'd gone in, we're on the throes of, this business that, worth at the time around about 35 million. And we, and this law firm is sort of pitching as to why we should work with them and how they're going to help us. And they'd sat and just patronised me for an hour about how clever they were, how I wasn't clever, how I was clearly lucky, how again that I couldn't possibly make this money because they'd been to university and I hadn't, and they completely ignored my wife, who's which actually didn't bother her at the time. It would bother her now. It didn't bother her then, but it bothered me because I thought actually, although I was probably more vocal and it's more of a male industry, Jules is super smart, super hardworking. Behind anyone that's kind of the front man, whether it's likes of me or you or whatever, there's a lot of other people doing a lot of other stuff because we're doing all the theatre, but a lot of the time they're doing a lot of the other stuff that's potentially even harder. And the best bit I remember was that they were a bit like, we'll invest this money for you, and I said, oh, why is that? And they said, oh, well, we know all about investments, and and you don't, and blah blah. And it was a bit, honestly, all they really needed to do was just go, oh, bless you, here's a glass of milk, and whatever. And I've never done, and humility is important to me, so I'm not proud of this, but when you understand the circumstances. And I said, I was getting more and more and more annoyed at how kind of arrogant they were. And I've never done this before or since, but I sort of stopped him dead. But I'd had about an hour of this, and again about how clever they were. And I said, can I just ask you one question? And this guy's probably mid-50s, and I'm sort of like 30 at the time. And he said, yeah. I said, oh, are you a multimillionaire? Bear in mind, we're talking about investments and all this. And he went, no. I said, well, I am, so fuck off. And I just walked off. And that actually sounds terrible.
No, but we all have our moments.
But we do have our moments. But the thing is as well, the reason I say it's a bit weird is I wouldn't dream of going up to Michael Schumacher and going...
And patronising him.
Yeah. I'll teach you the thing about driving, mate. I've just passed my test. Jump in. You know, blah. It's a bit weird in terms of...
So foolish.
Yeah, so I think it's really weird from this kind of corporate world. And this is why... with investors and entrepreneurs, it's a really tricky balance of kind of oil and water that you have to try and make work, and you'll be doing it as well, where we probably just know stuff. We don't know how or why we know stuff, but we just know stuff. And we've got this absolute, and this is coming across you, you know, in it absolutely radiating off you, just this belief in whether it's right or wrong. If it's wrong, you'll make it right because you absolutely believe in it. And I think other people have to just be told stuff constantly for them to eventually believe it. And it's weird. We had a flavour development company into Grenade recently, and my head of product, who's very much like me, he's been with us for sort of 6 years, and again, he just gets it. You can't teach it; he just absolutely gets it. And he said, "Oh, we had a flavour house in today," and he said, "I don't know why I bother." He said, "But every now and again, I kind of feel I should get one in to see if we're missing anything." I said, "You learn anything?" He said, "No, not at all." He said, "I can't understand." He said, why they can't work out how we launch flavours of things. So we've just done those like blueberry muffin and billionaire shortbread and these new reload bars, and they can't work out how we come up with the flavours. And I'm like, well, we just like them, really. Yeah. But they can't work out how we aren't doing loads and loads of surveys to find out what people actually want. And, you know, they've got to go and ask, like, get 40 different surveys to tell them it might be a good idea to launch a strawberry flavoured product in the summer. It's like, well, we kind of know that, I think.
Yeah, but surveys are also going to just lead you down the path of convention. And, like, nobody knows what they want either.
No, they don't.
Until they try it. And they're like, oh, well, you know.
Well, I had this conversation, actually, about Virgin Atlantic, because, and Richard was saying there's not much point asking a Virgin Atlantic passenger what they want, because they want cheaper flights. They want to get places quicker. Well, you know, that's just... physics. You know, they all want lie down beds in economy. It's just you don't learn anything. You know, they don't care what colour the air stewardess' uniforms are, particularly because it doesn't improve the flight. So what do you actually learn? So, but there's a whole kind of survey culture, and I think these entrepreneurs, we just kind of know stuff that we think's right.
So true.
And I think it's simple. Very often I think, well, I like that, and if I like it, I think other people will like it.
Do you get frustrated sometimes that people can't understand
constantly? Constant frustration.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't. I'm still learning probably how to try and curb frustration.
Same.
And we were chatting this morning about something actually with business, and I just said, like, you know, don't say we can't do it. We're doing this. No one tell me we can't do it. How are we going to do this? I'm probably not good at managing frustration.
I'm not that great either.
When you crack it, you'll crack it before me. I've got no doubt. When you crack it, can you please tell me?
I'm getting marginally better, but there's also a place for frustration, which is probably something people don't say in business. There is a place for having moments of passion, let's say, about how things should be done. And people won't appreciate that, but... if you look at any great entrepreneur, whether it's Steve Jobs, someone told me a story about Steve Jobs the other day, that he was so easily frustrated and so passionate about how things had to be done that they actually built him his own office away from the main campus, and they only let people work in there that could deal with Steve. Yeah. And because he would kill the culture of the other 10,000 people at Apple. So they literally isolated him in this own like crazy house where people who were tough enough could be in there. And if they hadn't done that, there would be no Apple. For someone to say, we're going to remove the keyboard and we're going to put one button and we're not going to use the headphone jack that everyone else is using and we're not going to allow you to put songs on the device. All of these radical things, a group would never ever especially a socially conformist group, would never ever come up with such innovations. It takes someone with real conviction and an unapologetic approach to achieve that.
You've got to be pretty much on the spectrum, which I think most
to
entrepreneurs probably are in some respects.
Up to some,
I definitely am.
Yeah.
Would you say you are?
I am 100%. Like all my favorite entrepreneurs are so fucked up.
Yeah, a little bit. I prefer eccentric to fucked up, but you're not wrong. I mean, we're getting tight on time, but just one more question as well, because I really like this one, because I mean, I know the answer to this, and I know you will as well. But it's interesting that people are asking this sort of stuff. And the question is, does age matter in the world of entrepreneurship? And is being young a help or a hindrance? What would you say to that?
Being young is super useful if you know why it's useful, if you know what the advantages are. And I talked about one of them there, which is people don't expect a lot from you. So you can become a prodigy. You can blow people away just by being confident and good. Good as a young person is seen as exceptional. I realize that by the time I get to 30, I'm going to need to be a different level to wow people.
Yeah, true.
And also my success is going to have to be significantly higher, because walking in at 18 years old, just saying I'd started a business got me on the BBC Newsnight show.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm 30
years old,
no one gives a crap. You know?
Of course.
And typically in life, in all aspects, your grades, your age, whatever it might be, none of these things matter really unless you let them get to you. So it's the same with grades. Like getting a D doesn't matter unless you let the D get to you, and then you spend your life walking around as a D, expecting D, thinking you're a D and whatever. Same with age. If you think you're too old to start a business, like you probably are. If you think you're too young, you're probably, because it's a mindset that you adopt. And so,
well, I think being young is a massive advantage, but also I love the fearlessness, 100%. Because you're just fearless you're ultra fearless as a small child, aren't you? You know, it's like, go and jump off that cliff. What can happen? You know, as you get older, you do get more and more scared because you become more aware, I think, of risk. You've got more to lose.
Sure.
And I think when you're young as well, you've just got time to recover.
100%.
Whereas when you're 15, you've got kids and all that.
If you roll the dice and you get a bad hand.
It's harder because it doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everyone around you. So, massive advantage to being young, which I no longer am, but I am in my head. I've got the mental age of a 12-year-old.
It's like rolling a dice. If you roll the dice and get a bad hand when you're 18, you're already at the bottom. No, your mortgage doesn't fall through. Nothing happens. So you can just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. If you roll the dice when you're 45 and you've got a mortgage and 4 kids and the kids need school uniforms and all this stuff, and you get a bad hand, the cost is tremendous. It's potentially tremendous. So this is what my advice to young people is, like, when you're young, just roll it, roll, because things change, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, actually, just to finish on, so we had a lad called Alex Beaumont that's he came to work for us just in customer service. I'm living in Brighton and applied for a job in customer service probably 2 or 3 years ago. And there were a few phone call interviews. And customer service is a great place to start at Grenade because you learn loads and you touch in every aspect of the business. And again, we see what people have got, what we've got to work with, and where we can sort of progress people and try and find out what they're really good at, what they really want to do. And he took a massive risk, as we did on him, but him more so. Of moving up from the south coast, not knowing anyone, just renting a house then with 5 or 6 of the people he would never met to come and start at a job just because he believed in what we were doing at Grenade. And you'll probably have lots of stories like this as well. And then last week, and he progressed through Grenade like a rocket, ended up doing sales. And then, we've got an enormous opportunity in India where we've got like 5,000 pharmacies over there. And we're like, we really want someone on the ground that can look at this, that can make it work, because if you don't send your best people, actually, let's see if Alex wants to go. So I said to and ironically, we'd all talked about it before we actually spoke to Alex, and I didn't know he didn't know. So I'm talking about going to India, and he must be thinking, I don't want to go to India. No one's mentioned anything to me. But bless him, he went last week, and I said, look, if it doesn't work, hit the panic button, just come home. And we miss him in the UK, and we've got lots of examples like this. But to that point of being fearless and young, I think actually what an amazing experience. He's got a lovely apartment out in India, and again he's seeing the world for free, doing stuff for us. It doesn't work out, come home, and then we'll heat out our Siberian office as a punishment. But I really like to try and find people that welcome opportunity and whatever as well, because that's what life's all about.
Exactly.
Steve, absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Epic as always.
Thanks, mate.
Really enjoyed that. So Brilliant. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it, mate. Thanks, mate. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, wow, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I certainly did. That was Steve Bartlett from Social Chain, and we're pulling the pin on entrepreneurialism. And if you want to hear more of the same, then hit the subscribe button below.